He keeps a clay jug on the table, not a bottle. Cloudy, green, almost thick enough to chew. Every meal of his life, he pours it over whatever is in front of him. Bread, beans, greens, it doesn't matter. The jug comes out before anyone sits down. He presses it himself, once a year, from trees his grandfather planted on a hillside above the village. His grandchildren bring him the smooth, golden oil from the supermarket in town, and he won't touch it. He says it tastes like nothing. He is somewhere in his late 90s now, and the one time a visiting research team checked his blood pressure, the numbers surprised them enough that they checked it twice. Here is the detail that should stop you. He is not avoiding fat. He pours more of it over his food, visibly, generously, at every single meal, than almost anyone you know. So if the secret isn't eating less fat, what is it? That question is what this video answers, because when researchers went looking for what set this part of the world apart, they didn't find a list of exotic foods Cretans were eating that the rest of us weren't. They found a list of ordinary foods conspicuously absent from the table. 5 absences sustained without interruption for most of a lifetime. Let's lay the data down first, and then walk through exactly what was missing from his plate. In 1957, a researcher named Ansel Keys began what became the 7 countries study, eventually following more than 12,700 men across 16 population groups in 7 countries with mortality data tracked across 45 years. Of all 16 cohorts studied, Crete came out with the lowest cardiovascular and cancer mortality of any of them. The gap between Crete and the highest risk cohort in the study, Finland, ran as high as 10-fold. Not a modest statistical difference, a 10-fold difference in heart disease and cancer death between 2 populations living in the same era, eating what looked, on paper, like comparably fatty diets. That last part is the detail almost nobody mentions. A Rockefeller Foundation survey of Crete conducted by researcher Leland Albaugh in the late 1940s found that Cretans were eating roughly the same total amount of fat per day as Americans of the same period. Same fat intake. Wildly different health outcomes. The difference wasn't how much fat they consumed, it was where that fat came from and what wasn't sitting alongside it on the plate. Cretans sourced their fat almost entirely from olive oil, with meat, dairy, and sugar present only occasionally. Americans sourced theirs from animal fat in a diet built around exactly what Crete had pushed to the margins of the weak. So that is the real question this video answers, not what Cretans added, what they consistently left out, generation after generation, while the modern world quietly added it all back in. The first absence is refined oil. Our anchor figure's stubborn jug has a documented chemical reason behind it. A 2021 pilot study comparing traditional Cretan extra virgin olive oils to commercial Spanish, Italian, and Greek oils found that the Cretan oils, pressed using old stone mills without filtration or centrifugation, had roughly 15% higher antioxidant capacity and about 60% higher total polyphenol content than the commercial counterparts. That bitter, peppery catch at the back of your throat when you taste a rough, unrefined oil. The sensation that makes you cough slightly. That bitterness is the polyphenol content announcing itself. Refining strips most of it out for a smoother, blander product, which is exactly why supermarket oil tastes mild and consistent, and to a man who grew up on the unfiltered version, like nothing at all. This is not just a flavor preference. The PREDIMED study, which followed 7,216 adults at high cardiovascular risk over a median of 4.8 years, found that participants in the highest tier of extra virgin olive oil consumption had a 39% reduction in cardiovascular disease risk and a 48% reduction in cardiovascular mortality compared to those in the lowest tier. That is one of the more striking dose-response findings in modern nutritional research, pointing directly at the same kind of oil our anchor figure refuses to give up. The action for this layer is the simplest one in the whole video. Find whatever oil you cook with most often and replace it this week with a robust, early harvest, unfiltered extra virgin olive oil. Pour it generously over bread, over beans, over vegetables, not rationed out in careful teaspoons. The second absence is daily red meat, refined sugar, and refined grain. These three travel together in a modern Western diet and disappear together from the diets of populations that age slowly. In our anchor figures household, meat appears on Sundays, not most days in between. Centenarian dietary research consistently points to one underlying mechanism, glycemic index, meaning how quickly a food raises blood sugar. Diets built around legumes, vegetables, and minimally processed grains release glucose slowly and steadily. Diets built around refined sugar, white bread, and frequent red meat spike it sharply, repeatedly, over years and decades. That difference in blood sugar rhythm is one of the clearest dividing lines researchers have found between populations with low chronic disease rates and those without. And the food doing most of the quiet work in that slow-release pattern across nearly every long-lived population studied is the bean. Researchers who compiled roughly 150 separate dietary surveys of centenarians across multiple regions found that these populations ate about 4 times the beans and legumes the typical American eats today, at a baseline of at least half a cup daily. Lentils, chickpeas, and fava beans at the center of the plate, not pushed to the side as an afterthought, but functioning as the actual main event. The action for this tier is straightforward. Designate red meat a once or twice weekly food rather than a daily one, the way it functioned for generations in Crete, and let a legume dish take the center of your plate for at least one meal each day. Now here is where this stops being regional tradition and becomes something tested and confirmed. The 7-country study was observational. It watched what people already ate and tracked what happened over decades. Valuable, but it shows correlation rather than proof. The Allbaugh survey was also observational, a snapshot of Crete before modernity fully arrived. Both matter and both carry the same limitation. They were watching, not testing. PREDIMED was different. It was a randomized controlled trial where researchers actually assigned participants to different diets and measured what followed. When it ran, with over 7,000 high-risk adults across Spain, a Mediterranean pattern diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil reduced major cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular deaths combined by roughly 30% compared to a low-fat control diet. 2 completely different research designs, separated by more than 50 years, conducted by different teams on different populations, arrived at essentially the same conclusion. That kind of convergence across independent methods is rare in nutrition science. When a 1950s ecological study and a modern randomized trial both point at the same pattern, that is the signal worth paying attention to. The third absence is processed and ultra-processed food, and this is the layer that ties everything above together. Our anchor figure's kitchen has almost nothing in a package, just oil, legumes, vegetables, bread, and whatever the season provides. A recent review synthesizing longevity data across Mediterranean, Okinawan, Nordic, and Nicoyan centenarian populations found a consistent thread. Diets rich in fiber and polyphenols from whole, minimally processed foods support bacterial strains associated with stronger gut barrier integrity and lower systemic inflammation. Whole legumes and unrefined oil feed that internal environment in a way that processed substitutes, even those marketed as healthy, generally do not replicate. There is also early mechanistic evidence worth noting carefully, because it has not been proven in humans. A 2020 study in roundworms found that polyphenols isolated from olive oil extended average lifespan by about 14%. leading researchers to hypothesize these same compounds may contribute to the benefits observed in human Mediterranean diet research. Animal research, not a human guarantee, but a clue pointing at the same polyphenols sitting in the unfiltered jug our anchor figure has never once considered trading away. The action for this final tier is a 30-day experiment rather than a lifetime overhaul. Pick one meal each day and remove anything ultra-processed from it entirely. Replace it with something whole, dressed in real olive oil. Track how you feel at the end of 30 days, not clinically, just honestly. Here is the full picture. The 7-country study found Crete had the lowest cardiovascular and cancer mortality of 16 cohorts, with up to a 10-fold gap against the highest risk group. The Alba survey found Cretans ate as much total fat as Americans, but sourced it from olive oil rather than animal fat, with meat, sugar, and refined grain minimized. PREDIMED confirmed that a Mediterranean diet built around real extra virgin olive oil reduces major cardiovascular events by roughly 30% in a controlled trial. And across all three, conducted by different people in different decades using different methods, the same 5 absences marked the long-lived table: refined oil, daily red meat, refined sugar, refined grain, and processed food. If you want one place to start today, start with the oil. It is the cheapest change to make, the fastest to put into practice, and it carries the clearest dose-response data behind it. Walk into your kitchen, find whatever oil you reach for most without thinking, and replace it with a real, unfiltered, early harvest extra virgin olive oil. Taste it raw before you cook with it. If it catches at the back of your throat, that bitterness is exactly what the research keeps pointing at. If you want this framework built out week by week for an ordinary kitchen, I have done that in the companion guide for this channel, Old World Table. Not a transformation program with a deadline, just the same habits our anchor figure has kept without fanfare for most of a century. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep going. One region, one pattern, one study at a time, kept as close to what the data actually says as we can manage. And tell me in the comments, of the 5 absences, refined oil, daily red meat, refined sugar, refined grain, or processed food, which one would be hardest for you to give up? I read every one, and your answer shapes the next video.